Welcome back to the Chelsweets kitchen. Today I'm sharing this very colorful fireworks-inspired cake. So I wanted to make a cake to celebrate all the great things that have happened this year, and I figured that a fireworks cake would be the perfect cake. So I'm making this cake with some black cocoa cake layers, and I'm frosting it with my classic American buttercream. So I took vanilla buttercream and I colored it a bunch of different colors, and of all the colors that I was going to use, I decided that I liked purple, that turquoise blue, and yellow best, so I made some extra of those colors, and I'm filling the cake with that frosting. So this cake is made with 7-inch cake layers, and I'm smoothing my frosting using my large offset spatula. Once all of my cake layers were stacked, I began to work on adding a very thin layer of frosting around the cake and also smoothing out any of that overhanging frosting to create my crumb coat. Once my crumb coat was nice and smooth, both with my offset spatula and my bench scraper, I popped my cake into the freezer for about 5 minutes just until my crumb coat was firm to the touch. Then it was time to cover this cake in a thick second layer of my black cocoa buttercream. So a lot of people have trouble getting a really dark shade of black when they're making frosting, and it definitely can be a challenge. 2 tips I have are to start with a chocolate buttercream. Having it naturally colored a deeper shade will make it easier to get your frosting black. And I also recommend making it in advance. If you let it sit for a couple days in your fridge, the color will deepen over time. So once I smoothed that second layer of frosting using the same techniques as I did for my crumb coat, I began to work on the fireworks. So like I mentioned earlier, I had divided my frosting into 6 different bowls, and I used some gel food coloring to get some really vibrant colors. I placed each frosting into its own piping bag with a round tip. I only had about 3 small round tips, so as you can see with this blue bag, I don't actually have a tip on it. It's totally fine if you don't have enough frosting tips. You can always just cut a small opening at the end of your bag, and it should work just fine. As I was piping on these different fireworks, I tried to make each one unique and have a slightly different shape. In reality, of course, people are going to use the same fireworks when they're lighting them up, but I think when you picture a really beautiful sky of fireworks, there's a bunch of different kinds, and I really wanted to emulate that look. So I started to get a little bit wild with my yellow firework here. You can see it's a little bit sharper. I added some dots around the sides, and I really just kept trying to mix things up as I worked my way around the cake. So there is no right or wrong way to create a firework. Some of them you can see I kind of started on the outside and dragged in towards the center. Or for this one, I kind of started in the center and worked my way out. So it's really just whatever look you're after and however you kind of picture your fireworks looking. Once I had covered the entire side of my cake with fireworks, some of them kind of overlapped onto the top of the cake, I began to work on a really fun, giant, colorful firework for the top. I used the same technique that I used on the sides of the cake, and I used every single color for this firework. So I wanted this to be my most impressive firework, and I really went all out, covering the entire top of the cake with colorful buttercream. Once I had finished, I used a wooden dowel to create a little bit of a more defined center for the firework. Then there was nothing left to do but cut into this cake. So as you can see, we have those beautiful frosting colors on the inside, and the outside is just as bright. I hope that all of you have a wonderful New Year's Eve this year. I'm actually going to be celebrating it at one of my best friend's weddings, so I think it will be a very memorable night. I'd love to hear what cakes you'd like to see me make next year, so if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below.